divided by 13. We actually, the story behind having these amps, Lenny went and saw Paul McCartney and was amazed with the sound that was coming out. So he asked, so he asked me, you know, what is he using? And you know, I actually knew Fred very well because he lives in my area.
Sure.
So I called him up and I said, hey, you know, what are they using? What can we get? And basically I kind of bought everything he made at the time. So we have something like 10 of them in our storage and stuff.
Oh, nice.
So we actually used them a whole tour. When we were opening for Aerosmith, we were using nothing but divided by 13. So the reason I like this, it actually kind of mimics a deluxe reverb for us. It does have built-in reverb. It has 2 channels. We're just using more of the cleaner sound. And I use this for kind of more of a funky sound for Lenny. When we're doing the funky part at the end of American Woman.
Oh, yeah.
I also use it for Fields of Joy because it gives a nice clean breakup, kind of like, well, what a small deluxe reverb would do.
Right,
so that's what this amp does. And those are the only 2 songs I use it on. Then we go down to the twin reverbs, and what I tend to do, because we have a certain look on stage, I keep the amps back here running with the Bradshaw system and everything, and I'm feeding cabinets on stage. But they're housing the same speakers they would as a combo. But since it's no longer a combo on stage, I take the combos apart and I put them in head cabinets and put the speakers in the cabinets on stage.
Fantastic.
So the twins are what they are. They're just standard twins. I buy silver face because they're cheaper, but they are modified to be black face. Schematics basically.
Right.
So that's what's going on here.
So you actually go into the circuitry yourself and
yes,
mod them in?
Exactly. Or demod them basically.
Okay.
Kind of more or less.
Take the modern stuff out.
Yeah. So one is set up for just standard clean. Use it for the intro for Fields of Joy. Use it for It Ain't Over Till It's Over. Use it for Let Love Rule. The next one, the bottom, they're the same amp. So if this one ever went down, this becomes a backup. But since I have 2 different sound settings going, this one I use for always on the run. So it's set up very clean and very bright. I've taken all the mids and all the bass out and just cranked the treble and backed off everything and have the bright switch on. So I'm really trying to just get a spanky, you know, kind of sly zone sound out of it. So that's what this is doing. But this will do exactly what this does, just changing certain settings. So throughout the night you'll see me changing settings as the show goes on, depending on what the song is.
Gotcha.
Again, it's all about trying to recreate what he has on the albums with what I have here. Then we go down to Marshalls. One is plexi, one is a brushed face plate. Late 60s, early 70s. 50 watts. We don't really use anything above 50 watts except the twins, which are 80, mainly to keep the volume down on stage. And again, very meat and potatoes, nothing modified heavily or anything. It's very standard. It's more about the guitar player getting more aggression out, getting it dirtier than the amp overdriving itself or such. As we move on, we have 2 Tweed Deluxes. They're used for the songs that are off the first album, Mr. Cab Driver being one of them, because that's actually all he had back in the day. Now these are reissues. I do have originals on another rig that we use. What I did with these though, we did change a lot of the capacitors and filter caps within the amp to mimic more of an old sound, because the newer stuff, the tolerances are too pure and they get a little sterile sounding. So we're trying to get them to be a little looser, funkier, a little looser sounding. I do change out the speakers to Celestions, which I'm using on stage, and we'll go over that. What's in here right now is vintage 30s, but actually currently I'm trying out the gold bell Celestions, and I'm actually liking that a little better. So unfortunately they don't fit in these very well because the housing hits the transformers. So but because I'm only using just a head portion and I'm taking a speaker direct feed out to the cabinets on stage, I can put whatever speaker I want.
Absolutely.
What's running the whole system is custom Bradshaw system, and it looks complicated, more complicated than what it is. It's very simple. It's one input, feeds 2 amp selects, and that's really it. And the custom interface basically has your input. It has 16 loops in it, so I can put all these effect pedals in loops, and when I'm not using them, they're out of the chain, and it's just a direct feed to the amp selects. The amp selects are a way for me to feed multiple cabinets on stage and feed 2 heads to 1 cabinet by switching the heads in and out, depending on what the song calls for. So I have them paired up. So I have 2 twins or 2 tweeds going to 1 cabinet. I have 2 twins going to another cabinet, 2 deluxes going to 1 cabinet, and 2 Marshalls going to 1 cabinet. So again, very simple. It's 1 in, 8 out, basically, and effect pedals in between. And the effect pedals range from our basic overdrives, modulation pedals, EQs, and such, and then finish off with more modulation pedals and reverbs and delay.
Cool. That's great.
And then the last thing that I do with the amp selects, just give you a little more, the amp selects also have a direct feed out. So I take basically a mix of both of these and feed them to Mesa Boogie Power Amp, which feeds another cabinet center stage, because Lenny's not in front of his cabinets. He's the singer, but he still needs to hear the guitar. So I have a specific special Ashdown wedge out there that I believe has a vintage 30 in it, and everything is kind of summed together as one mix and feeds the cabinet out on stage.
As a monitor signal.
Yeah. So he's getting guitar wherever he is. And my job is basically just to control all his effects and his switching during the show, depending on what the song calls for, if there's, distortion delays or, choruses in and out. And I'll be listening throughout the show. This way he just concentrates on singing and playing, and I concentrate on the rest of it. So if it breaks down, I can turn it off.